Hello everyone. So welcome to the channel of RD Automation Learning. So in this video, we'll be covering the playlist. One more video we'll be adding in the playlist of software testing becoming zero to hero. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to make you understand the concepts of software testing along with real-time examples. And before going to the functional testing and all those things, we'll have to cover requirements. So let us cover today's topic as ad hoc testing, because in that case we don't need any kind of requirements understanding or requirement analysis. So the purpose behind taking this topic before is that you understand how to do ad hoc testing without any requirements, because that testing does not needs any requirements. It is a kind of a testing which the testers would be doing based on their understanding. So in this video, what we will be doing is we'll be covering what is ad hoc testing, and I'll be showcasing you some real-time examples, right? So what is ad hoc testing? That would be the topic. And then we'll be seeing the characteristics of ad hoc testing, some real-time examples. If you are joining some companies or if you are working on some projects, then what kind of ad hoc testing you would be doing with respect to games, with respect to API, with respect to web applications, with respect to mobile apps. Then what is the difference between ad hoc and planned testing? Okay, then what are the advantages of ad hoc testing? What are the limitations of ad hoc testing? So pros and cons. Then when should you go for ad hoc testing, right? So what are the different techniques that you can use in ad hoc testing? So we'll be covering these particular topics. So let us start with the very first slide. What is ad hoc testing? So ad hoc testing is an informal, or you can say unstructured approach that involves spontaneous testing. So testers, when they join the company and let's say you don't have requirement, right? So you will be jumping on to doing ad hoc testing. That is ad hoc. That is nothing is planned in this. So the goal is to identify the unexpected behaviors or the edge cases or any potential issues that you might be having. So let's see these particular things with respect to some real-time examples. So we'll be covering characteristics of ad hoc testing as well, right? But before that, let's look into the real-time example. So let's take an example of a web application. So imagine you are testing an e-commerce website. Okay. So when you test an e-commerce website, so let me stop sharing the screen and let me take you to some e-commerce website. Okay. So this is the e-commerce website that has been created for the practical purpose so that you understand in detail. Okay. And the moment I say e-commerce website, so what comes in your mind? So you are getting an idea of Amazon.com, Flipkart.com, maybe Meesho. So all these are examples of e-commerce website. So this is also one of the website for e-commerce domain. So what you will do as a part of ad hoc testing, now you don't have any kind of requirement, any kind of user story here that what should work, what it should not work. So what you would do is, as we had discussed right now, with respect to ad hoc testing, you would be making sure that the search item is working. You will be randomly clicking on the product categories, and you will be ensuring that those are working. So let's say these are all the product categories, right? This is home page, this is home menu, this is for men, this is for women, this is for kids, electronics items. So just click on them. Is it loading? Yeah. Is it working fine? Right? For example, this one product you are seeing. Okay. So at least now one level of check you have made that yes, the link is working, the navigation is working, some products are being displayed. If it shows 404 error to you, if it shows 500 internal server error to you, if the page does not load, if it shows some kind of exception to you, then it's a bug which you have found by ad hoc testing. You're getting it. Now let's say if I search some product here, right? So let's say if I search shirt, then I'm getting all these kind of results with the offers along with the prices for all these products, right? So this is nothing but you are doing ad hoc testing. You don't know what it should display, but yes, you are having a very high level idea. Okay, as you are searching shirt, so those particular products should come. As you are navigating from one page to another, the website should work. So based on your understanding now, based on your understanding means you have already been using these e-commerce websites from long time, right? Since I think COVID or before COVID, after COVID, after pandemic, the usage of these particular websites was immensely was increasing day by day, and it has been increasing, right? So now you have got an idea that these particular websites from e-commerce domain. So, okay, so we can search, we can also do checkout, we can also do payment. So those are the examples. Those are a few of the functionalities that you are already aware, right? So you would be testing it in your own manner, right? So this is one of the real-time example that I showed to you. Now, apart from that, let us see other examples as well. Hmm. Now, let's say you are doing mobile app testing. So you have been joining the company. Now, it might be happening that you join some company and the QA manager or the QA lead there, they might give you the application directly for 1 or 2 days to do testing. Why it is important? If you want to make any guess, you can make the guess in the comment section of the video. You can pause this video because after you resume, you'll be getting the answer of this question. So the reason behind that is that when you join the company or when you are switching to the new project, so you have got a fresh perspective of seeing that particular application. You have got a fresh perspective of seeing that software. So with a fresh perspective, you would be able to discover more bugs, more defects compared to when you are testing it on a regular basis, on a daily basis, right? It might happen that you might be seeing some particular websites on Sundays and you get bugs on them in them. So this is what would happen, might happen when you join the company or when you join some project internally, you make some switch and you are looking that particular software, you are using that software or application for the very first time. So your manager or lead will come to you and say that why don't you do some ad hoc testing for some 2 or 3 days. It is very common in case of freshers. When a fresher is joining the company, and when I say company, so in case of startup company, when a fresher joins, so they'll be asked that you do ad hoc testing for 4 or 5 days and understand the flow of the application, then come back to us and then we'll start some KT to you, right? So those kind of things are happening. So ad hoc testing is very important because it gives you a potential to identify the issues, right? It's a kind of an ad hoc exploration that you are doing, right? Then let's take a second example of mobile app testing. So suppose you are testing a social media app on a mobile device. So during ad hoc testing, you decide to interact with different features of the app. So just take an example. How many of you are going through the documentation before accessing the mobile applications? None of us will go because you know what do you need. For example, if you want to use a video editing app, you'll be just trying your hands-on experience directly. So you are using it from an end user point of view. You are testing it ad hoc there because you are not going through the documentation. You are not going to the BRDs or FRDs. You are just going with an informal approach. So that is what is with respect to mobile app testing. Let's say you have to test some particular application, which is of video editing based. So you will be you'll be going through, you will be installing that particular application. You'll be installing that software. So they'll give you some login credentials. They'll give you some page for registering. Once you do, then you'll directly generally start using features, right? So now, let's say you are accessing that feature and the moment you start accessing it, the app is getting crashed. Or maybe you are trying to edit some large files of videos and it is getting crashed, right? So that's an example of ad hoc testing, right? You were not aware of what would happen, but yes, you know that a happy path, it should be working, right? Similarly, in case of software configuration testing, so consider there is a software application for financial analysis. And you are running the software with respect to operating systems and you are adjusting date and time. You are adjusting regional language preferences. For example, with respect to Japan, when you are trying to access that application, you are changing the language to Japanese. When you are trying to access that application from, let's say, China, then you are changing the language to Chinese. right? So, and when you change from maybe Japanese to Chinese, or maybe when you change from Chinese to Japanese, vice versa, or some particular local of some particular another country, right? So you notice some discrepancies in the way date formats are handled, right? So this is a kind of a localization issue which you can get while doing ad hoc testing, right? Now let's take in case of API, right? So what is API? So API is nothing but when your software is not being developed, it's not fully developed in the sense it's having UI, UX, backend, front, and everything working end to end. It's not like that working. Then you would be getting an API to test from the development team, right? And these APIs will have their own request parameters, and you need to use those request parameters, methods, and headers, and then you need to observe the response, right? For example, you are just given an API of weather forecast, and you don't have any kind of a Swagger documentation. So what is Swagger? Swagger is actually a documentation in which you can have a kind of an list of APIs and what requests need to be mentioned. So let me show you some example of Swagger also. So again, I don't have a Swagger available right now, but I'll showcase you some image of the Swagger so that you get a fair idea of what I am talking about, right? So by the time I open the Swagger image, right, please don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe our channel, because such kind of tutorials are made absolutely free, right? We are not charging anything, right? So here is a image of the Swagger document. You can see this is a Swagger API documentation of a pet store collection. So pet store is nothing but maybe it's an application or a software, and it would have all kinds of pet related, right? So see, these are all the APIs that they have given for pets. So post, adding a new pet to the store, put, update an existing pet, get, find pets by status, get, find pet by ID, right? So these are all the Swagger. This is known as Swagger documentation, and the development team would be helping you, helping the testing team or the QA team with the help of Swagger documentation. You can come to know about what kind of APIs, request, and methods you have to use, right? So now let's say on the similar lines, if you are just testing this kind of API, okay, you don't have any kind of a documentation, and you hit the API with some request parameters and you get some error, right? So that is nothing but you are doing ad hoc testing there, right? So let us come back to the document. Okay. Then let's say you are trying to send request with invalid or missing parameters, or you are trying to overload the API with a high volume of requests, right? So this kind of an exploratory testing, you are trying to get some error conditions from that API, right? So that is with respect to an example of an API. Now let's take an example of a game. How many of you would have been playing mobile games, right? I know many of you would be playing. So in that, again, there are some particular patterns, there are some particular user access, there are some particular gameplay related things, alternative routes, right? Now it might happen when you are playing a game, you took some route or you went to in some flow where you are continuously getting some kind of an error, right? Maybe you are trying to play with the games and you are trying to go with an unexpected behavior, right? Such as some walls is there or some objects are there, you're trying to make them pass, right? So this kind of player experience, this kind of gaming level experience, so this also can be considered as ad hoc. Now, what is the difference between ad hoc and plan testing? So this can be asked to you in an interview. What is the difference between ad hoc and plan testing? So first is the scope. So ad hoc testing has an open-ended exploratory approach. When you are given some application, when you are given some software to test, there are no uh, kind of an approach. Like there is it's an informal approach. There is no lines are drawn that you have to test only this particular thing, you have to test in this particular manner. You can test it explicitly as you need. Okay. In case of planned testing, you have some test cases written, you have some test objectives, and then only you would be going further. Documentation. So planned testing involves around documentation. You'll be creating test plans, you'll be creating test cases, while ad hoc testing is more about informal and minimal documentation. So repeatability, planned test can be repeated, right, to ensure consistency. Ad hoc testing is unique. It becomes very difficult to repeat because every user will be doing ad hoc testing as per his or own basis, right? Risk coverage, planned testing aims to systematically cover known risk, while ad hoc testing may uncover unexpected issues or edge cases. So ad hoc testing, advantages of ad hoc testing is flexibility, creativity, time saving, adaptability, right? So creativity, that means testers have to think outside the box, right? They have to come up with innovative test ideas to test the application and discover the bugs. What are the limitations? You don't have that much of time, right? There is lack of structure. You don't have a proper planning, right? It's difficult to measure. So sometimes the lack of documentation in ad hoc testing makes it very difficult to ensure that everything has been covered properly or not, right? Inconsistent results. Someone might be going some particular random steps. Another use tester might be following some particular random steps, right? So those are limitations. Okay. Now, when to use ad hoc testing, right? So you can use ad hoc testing when you are accessing the application in the initial phases, right? When you are trying to explore the application, you are trying to test the application at the starting phase, right? So at that time, ad hoc testing would be required, right? Then let's say you are trying to have a kind of an idea of what kind of user experience this application or software is giving to the end users, then also you'll go for ad hoc testing because you want to evaluate the usability. Okay. Then regression testing. So let's say if few of the bugs have been fixed and now you are supposed to do regression testing, so you can go for ad hoc testing. You might be conducting this particular ad hoc testing after implementing new features or bug fixes, right, to ensure existing functionality remains intact. Okay, then real-time examples. So I think we covered earlier real-time examples, right? And one more example you can add. So let's say there are developers who are integrating a third-party library or API to ensure its functions are working as expected with their code base. Then they can also conduct ad hoc testing, right? Then the various techniques which will be used in ad hoc testing. So first is that creative thinking, right? You have to think outside the box. So as we were discussing in the last slide as well, then checklist. You might be going with some kind of checklist that this particular pointers are to be verified. So there might be 10 or 20 items in your checklist, and you'll be going through, okay, these particular items I have to cover in my ad hoc testing. Collaborative effort, definitely you will be collaborating with other team members and you'll be sharing your insights. They will be sharing their own insights and findings, and then you will collaborate. You are coordinating with each other, right? Okay. Then importance of ad hoc testing, we already saw. Best practices. So which are the best practices and standards that you will be maintaining for effective ad hoc testing? So this might be asked to you in a managerial interview question because managers are mostly dealing with best practices, standards, tools, technologies, those kind of things you might get in the managerial testing interviews, right? So what are the best practices for effective ad hoc testing? So first of all, you will be maintaining a flexible and exploratory mindset, right? You will be exploring it. You will not be going with a rigid flow that, yes, I have to do this only. So that is not acceptable in ad hoc testing. Then you will be leveraging your domain knowledge. So that is very important. So domains, what is domain? So when I say e-commerce website, so it's an e-commerce domain, right? When I say investment banking, right? So it's a kind of an investment banking domain. So there is a difference between applications. There is a difference between softwares. You will also get softwares or applications in the social media or maybe healthcare domain. These are all domains. right? So you have the knowledge of those domains, and accordingly you are trying to identify the issues. You'll document all your bugs or issues which you have found. Documentation is very important. Hmm? Then collaborate with the development team to quickly address and resolve found defects. Then continuously learn and adapt your ad hoc testing approach based on feedback and lessons that you are learning. So whatever feedback that you are getting, you'll be incorporating that, and you'll be eventually using them for your further testing in your upcoming testing, right? So these are the best practices for effective ad hoc testing, right? So this was a video on the ad hoc testing. Please do hit like and share in the comment section of the video what are the other things you would like to see in our videos, right? So that's it for this video. Stay tuned for more updates. Thank you once again.